Yes, oh yes, oh yes. This meeting of the Washington County Board of Commissioners is now in session pursuant to adjournment. The Honorable Chairman Greg Matherly presiding. Come to order and remain standing.
Thank you, Sheriff. The first order of business this evening is our prayer that will be led by Commissioner Carriger, and the pledge of the flag will be led by Commissioner Ford.
Would you please bow your head? The Lord is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. As we follow along on the journey with Jesus to the cross, the season of Lent calls us to pray, fast, and give. Lent is also a time of contemplation, dedication, and preparation. Heavenly Father, we ask that you guide those of us on the commission and those in the audience to do what's right in your sight and to always put our trust in you. Amen.
Let's honor America.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, for the roll call screen, go ahead and indicate your presence here this evening, so we can get you on the record. All right, we have 15 present, 0 absent this evening. We do have a quorum. Next item is the approval of the agenda. Have any concerns or considerations that we'd like to take up now? Mr. Harris?
I just had one question. I'm trying to find it here again. But on the way, we're going to be voting on the things from the Pew Committee.
Yes, sir.
Let's see. That we're voting on the extension of the McCoy property first, and then resolution amending the roof repair. Is there any way we could swap those around and vote on the roof repair first, and then the extension of the property second? It would mean a lot for the way I probably would vote, as to have we vote on those two things.
You will put that in form of a motion.
I will.
Have a second?
Second.
Mr. Fitzgerald, thank you for second. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. We will move those two items on the agenda board. Attorney, we also have a couple of items the attorney would probably need to address as far as some minor corrections to the resolution. Mr. Sewell?
There's a correction to resolution number 190301. That's the first zoning resolution found on page 19 of the package. This property was recently transferred to Dustin Michael Boyd and Keita Boyd. When the resolution was prepared, that had not been reported to the Register of Deeds office, but those are now the owners of the property. So the resolution, just in the heading, is in the first paragraph. Note that the owners are Dustin Michael Boyd and Keita Boyd. That way, that resolution can be considered as correct. There was one other resolution, 190313, that came from the Rules Committee on page 125. We found out since the Budget Committee meeting that this is actually no new spending, and that the mayor will have authority just to move this money. So since that is not new spending, I discussed this with Commissioner Tester, who's the chair of the Rules Committee, and he's in agreement to pull this resolution from the agenda tonight if the commission is agreeable. But that is no new spending.
Is there any objection to pulling that resolution this evening? All right, seeing no objection, we'll go ahead and remove that item from the agenda. Anything else to consider for the agenda? Seeing that, we'll have a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Commissioner Dow, motion, second by Commissioner Ford to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries and the agenda is approved. Go ahead and move into the public comment portion of the program this evening. We do have several speakers this evening. If you are here for a rezoning to speak in favor of or against the rezoning, that will be in a different portion of the program during the public hearings for rezoning. So if you are signed up to speak for or against rezoning, just wait just a few minutes. If I don't call you, I'll call you during our public hearing for rezoning. Each person that signed up this evening will have 3 minutes to speak on the item that appears on the agenda. The first person is Mr. Raymond Ferguson. Raymond, if you'll come forward to the podium, please. Go ahead and give your name and address to the clerk, please, and get up there.
Chairman, Commissioners, now, I'm back there from the wall, so I talk loud and I try to read lips. But I'm here to ask y'all to vote for a resolution to cut down on this overcrowding at this jail and the jails in Carter County, Unicoi and all. We got too many people in jail for too small of crimes with the bonds and all. I was over there a month ago, visiting, of course. In the C block, they had one officer taking care of that whole block. Probably got 100 on C block, C6. When they do the 3 walks, they have to do 3 walks. You got one officer with about 60 guys, even our Sunday school teachers over there. He doesn't have a chance if they turn on him. The problem lies with the revolving doors in these courtrooms and these courthouses. That's probation. CCI is private owned probation. ACCP comes under First Tennessee Human Resources. They're supposed to do Meal on Wheels and take care of net transit, not worry about probation. I've asked the governor to put probation departments back under the state of Tennessee Department of Corrections. We got room out on Bristol Highway for them. And they can hire the probation officers. But we've got to do something with the jails. We're too overcrowded. We're holding too many state prisoners in the jails now because they pay more money. We got federal prisoners, they pay more money. The state can't take them. But we can't put the burden on the jail over here because you're putting the burden on the taxpayers of the state of Washington County. It costs a lot of money. If one has a heart attack, we got to take them to the hospital to take care of it, okay? Now, I brought to my attention, if you're in jail now in the misdemeanor charge, they charge you $34 a day, room and board while you're in jail. Well, folks, I can stay somewhere better than that for $34 a day than the jail. But that, to me, is wrong. Because the Constitution does not allow death in prison. We can't take the driver's license now if they don't pay the bill. 90-some% of the people in any jail around have a drug problem. Of that bunch, 80% are probably mental. And the state of Tennessee does not spend any money on mental. But we are burdened with taking care of them over there. We need to, some people have been in jail for 6 months with a $250 bond. They don't have the money. The family's not going to spend no money on them. So why should we take care of them? Give them a court date. Yes, they don't show up, we'll eventually pick them up. I mean, you know, all the patrol officers have got hundreds of cases of people that's being wanted, you know, but it's small type stuff. Yeah, we need to jail for the real criminals. I'm talking about the rapists, the murderers, the robbers, and things like that. Don't put the burden on the county, which is us. We're the taxpayers. Don't put it on us. Let them out. I mean, when I put them in there, I was in court one day down here, and a guy had been violated twice for failed drug tests that the probation officer didn't even drug test him. They said in all the organizations drug tested. The first time he was in there with no bond, and he's misdemeanor for smoking pot. Now, I've never smoked pot, okay? I've been around a lot of it now, but I've never smoked it. But misdemeanor probation. And then they asked the judge, after they kept him in jail 90 days, said he'd bond him $45,000.
Brandon, you have exceeded your time.
Okay, thank
We
you.
appreciate you coming down and sharing that with us.
Thank you.
That sure applies to a lot more of us.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker is Donna Lewis. Donna, if you'll come forward to the podium, please. Give your address and card.
Donna Lewis, 116 Franklin Avenue, Jonesboro. I'm here in support of the Jonesboro Library, Washington County Library, and to let you know that we're working so hard over there to try and meet the needs of everyone in this community and in Washington County between Jonesboro and Gray, that I would like to see, on behalf of the staff over there, an increase in the pay. These part-time staff outnumbers the full-time staff right now, and the library staff employees don't get anything other than hourly salary, and most of them need college degrees. And you know, you cannot survive in this day and age on a salary of about $10 an hour. So I am here to support that. And I'm also here to let you know that in 2018, the library had over 32,500 users on the computers and the wireless internet. And our computers are really getting old and need to be replaced. And the bathrooms over there are another issue that have been neglected. And I know that's been brought up before, but I'd like to push that. So I'm just trying to speak on behalf of the library. And I thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll sure take that into consideration as the time is right upon us. All right, our next speaker is James Reed. James, if you'll come forward to the podium, please. I don't know if I remember your address, James, but you'll have to give it to the clerk.
You know, we just give pictures of both or just start?
No, you can just give your address to the clerk. Go ahead and hand those out. I won't start your time until you get back to the podium.
James Reeves, 125 Cindy Ann Drive, Gray, Tennessee.
Just look back at it.
One of my big pet peeves is garbage waste. I could go through a bunch I've seen. I don't know about 3 minutes, so I better get right to it. You guys are gonna vote on resolution for the roof tonight for Jonesboro Elementary School. What I just handed out there was basically a sheet that was done February 2018 of the school needs. If you take a moment, you will not see the Jonesboro roof on those needs. Okay. So, you know, next week we're going to be here. I hope all of you are here to see. Maybe we'll get some actual clarity on whether we have the money for Jonesboro or not. You know, I can go back and forth with the executive branch over and over again because I've watched the numbers since 2006 in this county, and I kind of know what's laying around. I talked to a couple of parents at Jonesboro. their reference was, I'm not worried about the roof at all. They're worried about getting the renovation done on their school. I'm not asking to say, hey, we probably need the roof, I'm gonna argue that. I just would ask that we shelve it maybe until April, so we have this discussion next week, because if we put a roof on Jonesboro and then we renovate the middle school, we're gonna look real silly spending $1 million on a building that's gonna be empty in 2 or 3 years. $600,000 for the books, that's gotta be done. That's, the architect always sets that stuff. I've watched the architect talk at the school board meetings, that the stuff for furnishings, kitchen is built into his thing. Well, I'm asking why it's coming out of the capital fund balance and why it shouldn't come out of that $17 million I mentioned back in January. That's already supposed to be allocated for capital projects. Okay, a lot of this is so we can play the shell game of, so next week when we come in here, we have no capital funds money. There's no balance left. They run it down to $200,000 this year. If we approve the roof and we approve the $600,000 right out of the fund balance. And that translates, you know, if we have cash, we don't have to borrow ×2 when we go to decide what we're going to do in Jonesboro. That's just simple arithmetic. There was discussion that happened that last month. Please avoid the city versus county disagreements. Come from South Florida. We had 8 different cities in 1 county, and it was an argument that continued a lot. Please avoid that. We're all in this together. We really are. Okay. In tonight's packet, since I had a moment, it's just interesting when I go through it. They list the capital funds and what everything's been approved for resolutions, and the library, it shows the Friends of the Library were donating $300. But on that same line item, it shows we paid out $740,000. It's just a lot of minor discrepancies I always see in the executive branch put in front of us. I don't get to ask the questions you guys did. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, James. As always, very interesting discussion. That will conclude our public comments this evening. Now, remember, if you have a comment for rezoning, that'll be coming in here in just a moment. And we will move directly into those this time for a public hearing for our rezoning. We do have 2 rezonings to consider this evening. The first rezoning is Dustin Michael Ward and Nikita Boyd the 5th Civil District, R1 low density residential, and A1 general agricultural district. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this request? Are you here? Do you want to come and speak in favor of your request? As in the other public hearing, you will have 3 minutes to address the commission. If you will give your address to the clerk, please, as you come to the podium.
My name is Nikita Boyd. My address is 115 Humphreys Drive. We have here is that we are trying to have resale this morning. We're just trying to get home for our kids. We just want to get our trailer set up on it and be able to, we own the land, we pay cash for it, we pay cash for the trailer. We just want to get our kids to run home. All we're in the
All right, thank you, Ms. Boyd. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this request? Seeing none. The next request is Mr. and Mrs. Ponce. In the 6th Civil District, R2 medium density residential district, and B3 general business district. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this request?
Yes, sir.
Sir, if you'll come forward to the podium, give your name and address to the clerk, please.
Hello, my name is George Wynn, 1726 Silver Hill Road, Elizabeth. I'm with Appalachian Development Group LLC. We're excited to bring a new family dollar development to Washington County at the intersection of 107 and 81. I ask that you support this important project. It will bring both jobs, increase sales tax revenue, as well as increase property tax revenue to Washington County. Again, I ask that you support this important project. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this request? Seeing none, is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this request?
Yes.
Sir, if you will come forward to the podium. Give your name and address to the clerk, please. Just one at a time is all. I just need to get.
My name is Babu Patel, and I'm one of the commercial register, and he's my grandson, and he does.
So the address is 3401 Highway 81 South. It's from the Crossroads Country Store in Jones Road. And we're just in opposition and keeping it as a residential zone because it would heavily affect our business and any future expansion that we would want to do to our business and any jobs that we want to provide to Washington County in the future. That's all.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak in opposition to the request? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and move into regular session. At this time, we'll call Ms. Charles, our planning and zoning director of the podium. Ms. Charles, thank you for being here this evening. Looks like you've had a busy month.
Yes, sir. Our first request this evening is to rezone property at 113 Humphreys Drive in Telford. This is from the R1 district to the A1 General Agriculture District. The purpose of the request is to place a single-wide mobile home on the property. That's something that's not an allowed use in the R1, but would be permitted in the A1. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of this rezoning at their March meeting. The second request before us this evening is for property on Highway 81 South, and it's just below the intersection with State Route 107. And the request is to rezone from R2 to B3, which is a general business district, and that is to accommodate a Family Dollar retail store. The Planning Commission also voted unanimously to recommend approval of this rezoning at their March meeting too. May I answer any questions?
Do we make a motion for each one, or do we do them together, or how do we?
Seeing no question, Ms. Charles, thank you very much.
Separately?
Yes, we can make an individual motion for each one.
I'll make the first one on the Shelton property. I think that's a good thing to do. I'll move for that.
I'll second that.
That's resolution 190301, correct?
Yes.
Motion made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Evans to approve the resolution. Discussion. Question been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote. 15 yes, 0 no. Resolution passes. The next item is resolution 190302. Is resolution rezoning a portion of property in the 6th Civil District, presently owned by Mr. and Mrs. Connors. Got a motion? Motion by Commissioner Fitzgerald to approve the resolution. Got a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Davenport. Discussion?
Call for the question.
Questions been called? Madam Clerk, we'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Chair, you need to switch out the vice chair. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote. 15 yes, 0 no. Resolution passes. We'll see the minutes of the Regional Planning Commission are in the packet. I'm going to switch out with Vice Chairman just 1 second.
proclamations are always such a fun time. Tonight we're going to honor a very special group of folks in our community. And that is the folks that really help to keep us safe and keep our law enforcement, our firefighters, emergency management folks, and emergency services guys and gals in here. So if y'all like to just come on up, we want to see what you look like, because these are the people behind the scenes and behind the screens. Well, you got the big teams, huh?
Thank you, Mayor. They're a great team.
Would you like to say anything about them before we get started?
The only thing I can say about them is what a great bunch of men and women that work there every day that are so committed to their work. They work hard every single day, day and night. And I couldn't be any more proud of a great bunch of people that I have working for me. So I want to thank you too.
They're not all here. Why is that?
Well, half of us has to work all the time. So another thing, Mayor, we do have a couple of our board members here tonight. Tommy Burleson is here with us. He's one of our board members. Commissioner Ford is here. He serves on our board, and it's great for their support.
Burleson like to be recognized. We'll stand up so everybody can see who you are. Thank you for your service. All right, let's get this proclamation underway. This is for Public Safety Telecommunications Week, which will be April 8th through the 12th, 2019. Whereas, every day, communicators serve the citizens by responding to requests for emergency aid from the public with professionalism, compassion, and commitment to the steadfast pursuit of their goal of saving lives and property. And whereas the efforts and critical functions performed by telecommunicators to answer calls for help, gather essential information, and ensure appropriate assistance is provided is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas telecommunicators are the vital link between citizens and police officers, firefighters, and paramedics, depend upon the quality and accuracy of information, monitoring of emergency activities, providing information to all parties concerned, and ensuring their safety. And whereas the Association of Public Safety Communications Officials annually dedicates the second full week in April as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week to honor the thousands of men and women who respond to crisis calls for help, dispatch emergency professionals and equipment, and to render life-saving assistance to the citizens. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Washington County, Tennessee, that we do hereby proclaim the week of April 8th through the 12th, 2019 as Public Safety Telecommunications Week in Washington County, Tennessee, and enlisting the support of its citizens and honoring these men and women for the role they play in making our lives, homes, and towns safer every day.
Commissioners, you have a proclamation before you. Mr. Ford has moved for approval. The second. Mr. McAllister with the second. Madam Clerk, if you'll take us to the voting screen. Mr. Chairman, I don't want to use the ghost voting for you. Would you like your voting? Madam Clerk, if you would, vote for
I just, one more time, like to say that, I've had the opportunity to go over and watch these folks in action. It's amazing technology, actually, that they work with every day, but, sometimes they're dealing with very difficult situations in the community. Domestic violence is an issue, suicide periodically, so sometimes they're laughing and cheering, and sometimes they're crying. We do have a pretty good stash of Kleenex over there. They have a very, 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 very difficult job. They will be juggling 2 or 3 calls and 2 or 3 different things at the same time. Our community just needs to be very, very, very proud of this organization and what they do for us. So I just again say thank you. Would any of you like to say anything to the rest of the group? Anyway, it's your time. Thank you. It's time. Thank you very much. We're honored to have you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, can we get a picture of you here?
Oh, that'd be scary.
Yeah, Jordan, can you mess this up? Smile.
All right, then. Janice, where did you go? Come up here.
Get back in there, hold on, more picture. Back there.
Since Janice Adams will not come up, we want to thank her for the great job she does. She is our office manager slash financial problem solver. And we appreciate Janice every day for the great job she does and keeps our payroll done. Do what? Well, yes, they do.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is the minutes for our February 25th regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. I have a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second. Tester, seconded by Commissioner Carrigan to approve. Second. Discussion. Madam Clerk, if you'll, Madam Clerk, we're not doing that. We have a motion and a second. All right, everybody go ahead and cast your vote, mark it in. Clerk, you'll announce the vote. 15 yes, 0 no, resolution passes. So the next item is the consider resolution 190309, is a resolution appointing a member to the Johnson City Public Library. We Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote, mark it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 15 yes, 0 no, resolution passes. Next item is the county mayor's report. Mayor Grandy. Our next item is the county attorney's report. Mr. Seeley.
We have no written report. Ms. Wilkinson is going to give a report on our public records policy and some information about public records requests for the commission. And then we're going to go into executive session after we give the commissioners an update on our pending litigation.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's an honor to address you on such a seemingly mundane topic, but it's actually something that you probably hear from your constituents a lot. Can you hear my voice okay? I'm not screaming at you? So, Washington County has a written records, open records policy, and within it, and tomorrow I'll send you all a memo with a copy of it and the form requesting it, but a public record is really just any document that's used in the transaction of government business, prepared for the transaction, received for the transaction. And the purpose, obviously, of open records is because we value in America transparency. And so we want to know what our government's doing. So documents made or received in the ordinary course of transacting business belong to the public. There are 538 exceptions, however, to what the public can actually access and receive. So in 2017, the legislature had a deadline of July 1st, which said that all government bodies shall have a written policy so that all Tennesseans know what the policy is. So Washington County passed a resolution in May of 2017 adopting a written policy. So that is why there is one in effect. And within the policy, and specifically it's Roman numeral 3, A4, there's a requirement that we, the custodians, which is the county attorney's office as a whole, will report to you, the Board of Commissioners, on the status and compliance, actually, with the Public Records Act. And she'll make recommendations, if any, for improvement or changes to the policy. So as you know, I was not here in 2017. I've only been here a short while, but I have had access to a number of record requests, and I've seen a good variety, and some of them have been voluminous. Some of them have spent a lot of hours only to find that there is no document that meets the description that's being requested. I think for you as commissioners, and for the public who are interested in this, you might like to think in mind that a record request is for something that's of record. So a lot of times people will say, I'd like to have a list of XYZs, would you prepare one? Well, that's not a record unless it already exists. So it might help you if you're talking to constituents and they want to know something. Sometimes what they want to know might be something that you can share informationally, but is not a record request. So I've had some interesting conversations, some good conversations with people at CTAS. I've had good exchanges with Public Records Council, Open Records Council at the Tennessee Comptroller. We've done some, I would say, in the legal profession, scorched earth research when I would get an idea, but what about this? And you may know that Teresa Stutes is your incoming email person, and I thought it'd be helpful to share with you a little of the process, because for you to really have a report that is meaningful, I thought you'd like to know, and I've heard from other commissioners recently, that it was beneficial to know how the policy works and what we do. So Teresa Stutes is the incoming email, and I can tell you, as soon as the email comes in, she's on it. So it might be something that is frequently requested. It might be some sort of phone list or something that people regularly request. She's got that, and it basically turns around, I review it, she looks for the 538 known exceptions and other confidential, proprietary, privileged information, names of children, phone numbers, things like this that might be on personnel records, county employees, just as an example. I sign off on it, and it goes, usually electronically, but some people have it mailed. Sometimes the request comes in and it involves, I went through our records to see where they normally come from. Schools, the school department, probate records, the sheriff's department, healthcare records, animal shelters, rates of euthanasia, purchasing, how much is spent, cable franchise agreements. That's just kind of a broad description when I went through to see what's most generally been requested since 2017 with the written policy being passed by the Board of Commissioners. Who requests them? I looked at that. Newspapers, TV stations, convicted felons, individual citizens, state representatives, Washington County commissioners, and businesses. Sometimes businesses who want to know what was the sealed bid after it was opened, this sort of thing. How much is being spent now? Maybe I could provide a similar service, this sort of thing. The volume of requests. I went through and looked at, it's about 19 months since the policy has been adopted in Washington County. Just this year, in 2019, since January, there have been 19 requests. I saw your eyebrows. They went up. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's interesting that, you know, it's good to know these numbers. 2018, there were 54 requests. July 1, 2017 through December of that year, 35. So it averages about 6 a month. Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's 6 that come in together. We recently had a request, Teresa, correct me if I'm wrong, it was 7 requests at once. A person made 7 requests. So averaging about 6 a month. Sometimes a lot of hours are spent. The process generally is that the county attorney's office, as the custodian of records, routes the request, looks at it. If it's about how many animals are euthanized in Washington County, who's the person who's going to know that, who's going to have those records. If it's about vaccinations, if it's about spending by the Board of Education, our office routes those requests. Sometimes the information is easily retrievable, and the person who's in that department or in that office can easily get it back. Sometimes it takes them a long time. Sometimes the information is in the basement of a building in a box. Sometimes that document wasn't filed in the right place and someone has to go through all the boxes looking for it. Not to belabor the point, but just so that you know, it takes people to do this. So the labor of locating, retrieving, reviewing, redacting, responding to the requests, there's an hour that's free. You should know this for your citizens and your constituents, and all this is in the policy. And there's an hour that's free, and after that, there is a reasonable fee of charges using the most economical and efficient method. Obviously, if there's someone whose salary is here, and there's someone whose salary is here, the lower rate is what is used to charge the person requesting. However, if this person doesn't know anything about what the record is, how to use the scanner or something else. So, efficiency. There's always a balance of the government's need to function efficiently and to protect the confidentiality, maintain the integrity with the public access and the right to know. I think one of the most commonly asked questions is, are there exemptions? Okay, so who can request a record? A citizen. You have to be a Tennessean, which you're lucky if you are, right? And so you have to be a Tennessean, and who can respond? only the custodian of records, and that is the county attorney's office. There are no exemptions to who's a citizen. The Tennessee courts have looked at it and said that if you're a convicted felon, you're still a citizen. So you can request these records. There's no exception like and I'm just going to pick a name, like the trustee exception to who can respond. Only the county attorney's office can respond. So the trustee can't respond with a public record. It has to come through the county attorney's office as the custodian of record, because this is the policy, and it's important as a government entity that we actually adhere to the policy that has been adopted. So that's really all that I had to tell you. I'm happy to answer any questions. I will circulate to you tomorrow, just to make sure you have the policy at hand. It's a one-page request. Just tell your constituents if they're asking, what do I ask for? Do I need to explain why? No one has to explain why they want something. They just have to make a clear request. And if there's a question as to what they're requesting, we would ask. If it wasn't clear, if it wasn't obvious on its face. So our recommendation at this time is to maintain the policy that's in place. It does completely adopt the Tennessee Code annotated, and it adheres to the best practices that are recommended by the Comptroller's Office. So we would recommend no change. If there were to be changes that would want to be considered, I would just ask that you vet those so that we can advise you of risks that may have been identified in other counties that chose to make adjustments. But the main thing is for the rule to be applied the same to everyone, all citizens, whether convicted felons or state representatives or mothers at home or businessmen or anyone else. It's all fathers at home and businesswomen. Round that out. Just so that it's applied evenly and fairly and equally to all. Do you all have any questions? Commissioner Harris?
Yes, ma'am. In this policy, is there anything that addresses the county commissioner asking for records? Do they fall under the same guidelines as a citizen? Well, I know as a commissioner, we have to vote on things that are of importance, and we need to know details, like, say, budget time coming up, or a number of things. And I've always filled those forms out. I guess I've requested several of those we probably talked about, but I just, and you've been easy to work with, but I've served on other boards in other towns, and as an elected official, a member of that board, I never had to submit that, so I didn't know if there was any exceptions in this policy.
It's a great
with the
question.
commission, since they're the commission's the one that actually adopted this policy.
That's a great question. And to answer it directly, there is no exemption for any class of person, whether a state representative or a county commissioner, a citizen who just wants to know, or anyone else. I can't speak to what other policy.
If Mayor Grandy or Mitch Meredith wanted to see a record, would they submit a request like I would?
Probably not. If it was a record, for example, our mayor in Washington County is the chief financial officer of the county. Mitch Meredith is the director of finance and budget. So I presume that their ordinary course of their working, I know that they work together. So they would be working on those documents in the ordinary course and scope of their role in that office.
We approve their budgets as well. I don't mind filling the forms out. I don't feel I'm any better than any citizen in the county, but I just find it sort of odd that a commissioner has to go through all that to get a record when the policy was developed by the commission.
Well, and actually the policy was developed by the Tennessee Comptroller's Office.
This commission approved a policy.
Absolutely.
For County, yes.
That's exactly right.
And we could change that, I guess, if we wanted to.
And that's exactly where I was going to go with that. If there was a resolution that this commission wanted to consider that was specific to a need, for example, Commissioner Harris's example of budget is a great perspective because of the number and you as the funding body. That might be something that you feel would make you a better commissioner. And so first off, in the meantime, I would suggest that we not bend and break the rule that's in existence, right? We want to follow the rule as it was written, a conservative, strict interpretation of the rule in black and white. There are no exceptions, and that is actually what I requested, and I'm happy to share that.
You say no exceptions, and I'm not trying to pick on the mayor or Mr. Graham, they're both elected officials too. You said no exceptions, but you just said if they request a document, they don't fill out any forms.
Well, what I actually said was those are the documents that they work with in the ordinary course of their duties. So as the chief financial officer and as the director of budget and finance, those are the documents that they work with. Just like the person in payroll, the person in bookkeeping, there's the documents that they work on in the ordinary course of their job, performing their functions. But if there was something, to your point, I think what you're really saying, what I'm hearing is you feel like there might be more information that you need to do your job as well as you can.
Yes.
And so that would need to be addressed by this body in considering what was needed.
So if we ask for records above the time limit, what you're saying is that you all will start billing us, like myself as a commissioner, if I ask for records that's above the 1 hour, you're going to start billing me for those records?
The rules would apply. So it's, but actually for example, there was a request recently that resulted in the location and identification of 2,400 and some odd responsive documents. It required 12 hours of bookkeeper time to go through the boxes, flag those documents, scan them, and put them in electronic format. So when you think it through, when you're funding that department, are you funding those hours, or is that above what that employee is normally doing? So I think that's the policy behind having costs associated, and that's what the Tennessee statute states. If there's something that you as commissioners wanted to consider as a resolution, that was my suggestion, that you talk about what it is you're trying to do and find a way to accomplish that, whether it's through I'm gesturing to Mr. Meredith, I beg your pardon. So for example, if there's some sort of access to budget information that you think you need or something like that, then I would recommend that you consider the scope of what you think you need to do that job, to do that focus.
There's an exception to the fees that the county attorney deems it to be in the public interest to waive those fees. Is that correct? I believe I read that in the policy this afternoon.
If you say you read it this afternoon, I will believe you. And I think that there is a waiver, and I don't remember if that's the exact wording, but there is and certainly if someone has expressed financial hardship or something to that effect, or made the request for the waiver. So if you'll bear with me, I didn't mean to take your whole evening. I intentionally left out the part that I had just heard that the Temple of Jupiter was to house records and not for the Senate. So let me see.
A couple of the concerns would be we're moving into the budget process. This obviously is going to affect every member of the budget committee. We typically, at this point, the way our meeting's set up, get our packet the afternoon of the budget meeting, the afternoon before, sometimes late in the afternoon, and then have to be ready for a budget meeting the next morning. I think I've already run into an issue where submitting a request, then I did not get documents for the meeting I needed them for. So I'm concerned as a budget committee member how we're supposed to be prepared and come to budget meetings if we can't ask Mr. Meredith to provide documents that he can email to us like that. And I think that's a concern. Even if we wait a month, we have to address department budgets during, if I'm not mistaken, during this coming month. If not, certainly the following month. If we don't address this, I think it may be difficult for us to do our work. And I would argue that some of those records are certainly used in the normal course of our work as elected officials. And in all our CJAS training, what they told us was the only thing you really can do is approve and manage the budget. So I have a little concern about the speed at which we get documents and whether or not the commissioners, again, if we can't get them because we are citizens and there's no exception for citizens, that would apply across the board.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I can't speak to how the budget was managed in 2018 without access to public records. So I don't know what the mechanism was to inform commissioners and give them the greatest sense of comfort with the numbers last year. I would suggest, obviously, if there's something that this commission wants to consider as a resolution, that I would, of course, defer to you as the commissioners. I would suggest that it be vetted with respect to the risks associated with it. However, I would say to the point you just described, with Mitch Meredith in the Budget Committee, that might present the opportunity in the meeting, in discussion, whether he has his laptop or something like that with him. I don't know if you need to have the, and I don't know if you need, as in I question whether you need, I do not know if you're discussing that you need to have the whole of the ledger or certain items in advance to prepare your questions. But I think that that's the sort of thing that you, as the body, need to identify what it is you need and prepare some sort of resolution that addresses that, because this policy, as it's written, doesn't provide an exception for anyone in Washington County. And that is the best practice according to the Tennessee Comptroller Open Records Council. But some counties have made narrow exceptions to that, and they've identified the risks associated with it, and that would be a determination. Obviously, the legislative body approves the policy. So I hope that answers your question. I can't really give much balm to what would make the mechanism for the budget this year easier, but I did want to report as to the number, the volume, how they're handled. They don't sit to the side. And since we did have we've had small ones, large ones, no response documents, some from commissioners, and Commissioner Harris has always been very polite when he's submitted them. And there's a lot of professional courtesy, and I think if you do see a constituent who has a question about how to do it, it's just to give a call and send an email. And if there's a direct concern from this body as to how to better do the work that you do, then I would defer to you on that to craft something that you think addresses your needs. But I wanted to be clear that the policy as it's written and Tennessee law do not view a commissioner any differently than any other citizen. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? We're good?
I'd just like to, I'll make a statement. I'm not either here nor there, but I'm just, every member on this commission, it affects, they have an effect on this county because we're the ones that sets the goals, we're the ones that spends the money, we're the ones the constituents looks to. And to me, I'm getting it that, I'm getting it that we as a commission maybe need to look at amending this resolution or getting something changed, because it don't seem to me like we're on, I may be not hearing it right, but it don't seem like that the mayor and Mitch is on the same plane as the rest of these commissioners here that I include myself as on. It seems like we're gonna have to jump through all the hoops, and if they'd ask for something, they're gonna get us like that. Am I right or wrong?
Well, I would never say you're wrong, Commissioner Ford, but I don't think that that's actually the hoops that they have to jump through, because those are the documents that they work on. So, no, they don't have to request the work that they're doing from the government, itself. But I hear you that I do. And so
I'm just saying, don't seem like the sky is light.
right. And if I've done anything to suggest that anything, I want to be very clear. The purpose of this policy is that everyone is treated the same. Everyone makes a request. However, the mayor does not have to make a request to log into his computer. He does that in the ordinary course of doing his job. So
it just seems a hard way for us as commissioners to represent commission with not being able to access.
Clarification, I'm sorry, because I may have misunderstood myself, but if something is on the agenda for an open public meeting, whether it's a committee meeting or the full commission, if it's on the agenda and we ask for supporting information leading up to that meeting, I had maybe previously understood then in that instance we didn't have to fill out the request formally if it's, you know, if there was something in support of that might determine, you know, how I vote one way or the other in this agenda packet. If I ask for supporting information leading up to that meeting, I had understood maybe we didn't have to fill out the request. Is that incorrect? So you're saying if I needed something,
if anyone needs any documents, because the way it's viewed under Tennessee law is that a commissioner, when convened, this body can do a lot. That when in 15 different homes or offices across the county, each of you are citizens. And so there's no exception when that citizen is preparing to come to the body and do the work. And so just because there's notice of an issue that will be discussed in a public meeting, that does not change the nature of requesting a public record through the custodian of public records, and that that custodian then responds under Tennessee law to ensure that confidentiality, proprietary information, and privilege is maintained.
I would be worried then that citizens may go unserved because what's the time frame in the public records request? What's the turnaround time?
Sometimes it's the same day, but always there's a response within 7 days.
I would just worry that if going through the package yesterday, I realized there was a bit of information I needed and wanted, I have to fill out the form, send it, and then wait 7 days. We're past the day today. That bothers me.
And I hear that concern, and that's why I think it's important for everyone to really have an understanding that perhaps personal interpretations or interpretations shared from other people might be erroneous. And that it really is to balance the efficiency of the government with the public's need to know. And so it really is, public records are really about the public more than they are about this legislative body doing its work. They really are about the public having transparency. Yes, sir.
Just to comment on what you just said about the 7 days, well, we're not even getting our commission packets 7 days before this meeting. Last term, we used to get them the Friday a week before, so that would be, what, 9 or 10 days? A lot of times Monday at the latest, which would have been 7 days. Now we're getting them the Wednesday before, which is 5 days before. Sometimes a Thursday before. Okay, or Thursday before. So we're not even getting our packet in time to ask for a record, from what I'm hearing. That seems like a serious issue that we need to deal with somehow.
And it might be something to consider in committees, which is, you know, of course, the fact-finding role to vet that information. I would suggest that at the time of the committee meeting to identify that information might provide some comfort to that worry. As far as the timeline, you and I discussed earlier this evening, making sure that the committees advise Ms. Green of action items and that sort of thing. I think there's always room for improvement. I'm happy to engage in a workshop.
Can I ask one more question?
Of course.
Did I understand when you said a minute ago, you know, that commissioners are just citizens unless we're convened as a body? I would disagree with that. You know, we take an oath of office. We're a commissioner representing our people no matter where we are. And also, when you said that, do you mean if we're convened here at a body and I request a document, are you saying at that point there's no charge to get the record because you're saying they were official, I guess?
Well, and if I said just a citizen, if that was in any way to say less than the commissioner that you are all the time under that oath, that was not my intention, because I'm an officer of the court regardless. So I very much respect the oath that you took and the time that you put into serving. So no, I was not trying to belittle the time that you are at home preparing to come here as the body. But as you know, under the laws of Tennessee, what this body does when it's convened, when it deliberates, is different, of course, than what it does individually.
So you're saying at that point then, if we're convened and I had a request to you or the County Attorney Seeley, and at that point, there's not a charge involved, I don't mind to pay it, but I feel like as a commissioner, you know, this is information that we have to make decisions.
Right, and
It's
I
not
don't
that
think
we're
you've
con-
ever had a charge, actually.
No, I haven't, but what you read tonight is any page over a certain amount, we're gonna start charging, so that's,
It would be, and
I
I
just felt
think.
like you were sort of putting, I don't know if you're putting me on notice or.
No,
if that's something that you're all doing tonight or
I'm
what,
just,
but-
I'm sharing
Yeah,
what's
right.
written in here, and that's really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
You're
Because
sharing the policy.
I
We're
am-
not changing anything tonight. Right.
this is just a report on the policy as it's written, and it's a reminder, you know, it's not putting anyone on notice.
Well, I know I've
nor is
requested several
this-
things lately, and I just.
No, and then let me just be very clear, because anyone here who thinks that person has made requests recently probably hears it differently, and I can tell you it's not just one person here who's made requests. It's more than one person here who's made requests. And this is addressed to this commission and to the public because the policy requests that the county attorney's office provide you with this report about complying with the act and make recommendations. So I'm really just discharging my duty to provide you with the report so that you can think about this policy. So it's not at all geared to any particular commissioner or any member of the public. It's a report. Yes, sir.
And please, can I just say, trust me, it's not towards you, because she's addressed the policy towards me many times already, and I've already talked to me, but I appreciate your coming to this, and I think it was good, because we've had a lot of discussion. And we've talked about it, and I think that's why she brought it here tonight, because we've already talked. I did not have to deal with, my past 4 years, I never dealt with a public records request. This year, I've already dealt with quite a few. So I appreciate you and Teresa coming tonight. And I felt like this is being addressed towards me.
It's a pleasure.
So you're telling me, I requested this morning. I got this from accessories office. You're telling me I should need to go through you guys before I get something like this that pertains to the county commission, which is pertaining to our meeting tonight.
I think that's available online, that document, is it not?
Well, it's a public record.
But can you access it online?
I didn't go online to get it. I went to the office and asked for it. I just wondered, you saying we should come to you before we get this? Or should we go straight direct like we've been doing?
For clarification, a tax card like that. I don't
Is it
see-
the actual property
Yeah,
card?
that's not on mine.
I don't have mine, I'm not up with that. So, it's a public record, so.
It's a public record. So you're telling me before we do this, we need to come to you guys, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
That would be my view. I don't want to be too conservative in
I
my
just want to
approach.
get this straight. I don't
hear
want
ya.
me to cause a problem. I want to be clear.
Well, that's why I was saying earlier, I wouldn't want to say right or wrong on any particular without giving it some consideration.
I know we're not here tonight to make any changes or anything. I just want to make it perfectly clear because
So I'll make it really clear. There's no exception to who is a citizen. Everybody is a citizen, and all citizens are treated the same, whether they are legislative representatives in the State House or on this county commission. Whether they are convicted felons or have no convictions or arrests. The custodian of records is the county attorney's office as a whole. That doesn't mean that the county attorney is the one who created, received, or prepared the document, or even stored the document, because we don't have the records, for example, on euthanized dogs, or the number of inmates, or Board of Education teacher salaries, all sorts of things. We route those requests. There's one email for incoming requests. It is tstoots@washingtoncountytn.org. There's no exception as to who is a citizen. Similarly, there's no exception as to who is a custodian of records. So I used the trustee earlier as the example. There's no assessor exception. There's no director of accounts, of finance and budget exception. There are no exceptions as it's written. And so I think the more understanding you have of the policy as it's written, and the more attention you give to what you think you need to do your best job and serve this county at the highest level, the more you'll be able to reconcile those two needs. But what we do is balance the need for an efficient government and the public's need and right to know what the government is doing.
Can I ask one question? Absolutely. Allison, I just want to make everybody understand. I need to understand this myself now. If I have a project and I'm the county mayor and I bring the project to the commission and Commissioner Tester wants to know more about my project, I'm free to provide Commissioner Tester as the mayor anything about my project. If he has questions about it, if the sheriff has questions about it, they need to bring that information to us, right? Because we wouldn't be able to go get that information ourselves.
For
You
discussion,
see what I'm saying?
I do, and that was what I was trying to highlight with respect to committees being fact-finding opportunities, that is the time to ask for projects. If there's something that's under consideration, to ask the entity, the person who's bringing you the project, could you please share with me spreadsheet XYZ? I'd like to know the number of employees. I'd like to see the whatever it is that you think would be relevant. Am I hearing your question correctly,
Yes,
Chairman?
I just want to make sure that, the elected official or whoever that is bringing the project to the commission will be under heavy obligation to provide as much documentation as the commission as possible. Because other than in committee, it will be hard for Commissioner Tester to back up and go get that information on his own.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of the burden of providing the information is actually the people that's bringing those projects forward to this commission.
That's
Would you
exactly
agree with
right.
that?
I do agree with that. And I think that it would be helpful to, I don't want to say remind, but to be clear with those people bringing projects to you with what the expectations are. Just like this evening, there may have been a number of commissioners who thought that this report was geared to something they had said or thought everyone hears something differently. And so one person may think it means this thing and one person may think it means that thing. And that's exactly why when you're convened in this body to ask whoever's bringing your project, to ask those questions and tee it up. And that's also part of what the public wants to know is what are you considering? And that is part of, it's not really public records, but to Commissioner Malone's point, it is about open meetings and what's on the agenda. And that is underlying all of it is the public's desire and right to know what this legislative body is considering when it deliberates and when it decides.
Mr. Wheeler, I'll call back on you, I'm sorry.
Yes, I want to make a motion before I do. I want to say I think that would greatly slow down the work of this commission if we have to, if we only get what somebody wants to provide us, if we don't get to ask for information ahead of a meeting. When we get to the meeting, then I can tell you I'm going to be asking that we not vote on some things until we have a chance to get record. I think we can fix this by making some changes to this policy, and I think we need to do that very quickly, particularly in light of not only the budget coming up, but other things that we're working on that have great fiscal impact on this county. So I'd like to move that we refer this to the Rules Committee and ask them to review the policy in consideration of requests from commissioners and how those are handled. And that we ask the Rules Committee to come back with a proposal within 1 month so that we can get this done in a timely fashion and get this issue laid to rest and be able to get on with our work.
I'll second that motion.
The motion made by Commissioner Wheeler, seconded by Commissioner Ford.
Question.
Bring that item to the Rules Committee for discussion.
And then tomorrow I'll email all of you so that you have at hand the policy as written in case you'd like to have particular items for discussion. Okay? And I'm available if you have questions when you're thinking about potential changes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion second. question has been called. Was there any question or discussion? I didn't get to ask that. Question's been called. We're going to switch to the voting screen. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, you announce the vote. That's 15 yes, 0 no. Motion passes. Mr. Tester, if you'll add that to your agenda for this upcoming month.
Yes, sir.
All right, I think we're ready to convene in executive session. Attorney? Chair, will you open the door and we'll get back to the grand jury room.
You got it.